All right. Hello, jewelry friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. My name is Desiree, and yes, you already know I'm your jewelry reselling bestie. In today's episode, we're going to talk about selling our jewelry or reselling our jewelry on non-reselling platforms. All right, this is a strategy that I think I am going to be incorporating more as we move into the new year because there is a lot of talk and there is a lot of chatter going on as it relates to this. All right, so when I talk about non-reselling platforms, I'm talking about alternatives and other options to resell or to sell our jewelry other than eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, and so forth. All right. Those platforms are tried and true. We all know them. A lot of us have probably already been selling on them for years, but we need to be aware of what other options there are. Those are not the only games in town. And a lot of resellers have been talking about how it seems to be getting more competitive, overly saturated. And this is not just in the jewelry category, but this is in other categories as well. So I want to come from the angle that we have options and we can create other ways to make the money we want to make without having to be limited with specific platforms, websites, or whatever. All right, so we're going to talk about that today. So before we get into that, I do want to give you a little announcement. I have been thinking about this for a while and I finally pulled the trigger. And I have created a Facebook group for jewelry resellers. It's called the Jewelry Resellers Podcast Community. And I will put a link to that in the description of this video if you're watching the video. And I will also have a link in the show notes if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast. All right, so this is going to be a Facebook group. It's free. It's specifically tailored to jewelry resellers and just kind of creating a space where we can support each other, share information. I will be in the group giving as much as I possibly can as it relates to helping you start a business, grow your business, scale your business, whatever it is, wherever you are on your jewelry reselling journey. All levels of jewelry resellers are welcome in this group. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you can access Facebook, you are more than welcome to join this group. All right. So I will have a link to that, like I said, wherever it makes sense. And I would love to have you in that group. All right. I know there's a few of you who have already joined, and I want to say thank you and welcome. And like I said, I really intend for it to be a positive and supportive space for any and all jewelry resellers. All right. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic because I have a lot to cover. A lot to cover. So, like I said, today's topic is reselling jewelry on non-reselling platforms. So, we're going to talk about how we can use this to our advantage. This is going to give us a lot more flexibility, a lot more room to be creative as it relates to how we connect with our buyers and or our customers. All right. So, we want to figure out if this is something we want to consider, and then if we make the decision to step out of the non-reselling platform space, we want to know what our options are and how we can go about setting those things up. And that's the information that I want to give to you in today's episode. All right, so we're going to talk about exploring creative, non-traditional platforms for selling or reselling jewelry. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges of the oversaturated reselling marketplaces, like I talked about earlier. And we also are going to focus on the benefits of branching out, right? Because again, like I've said in past episodes, the nice thing about being a jewelry reseller is that we can set up and structure our business however we want and however it makes sense for us, particularly where we are on our reselling journey. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about why we want to consider non-reselling platforms, and we are going to talk about the pros and cons of doing so. All right, so remember, I'm coming from the perspective of jewelry, but again, this could apply to pretty much any category. All right, so the first advantage that I know of is that there's less competition. There's not really a whole lot of people stepping outside of eBay or Poshmark or whatever. A lot of people kind of stay there and they are too afraid, or in some cases too lazy, to consider other options. And so if you are willing to at least experiment with this, I'm thinking that it could create a lot of opportunity for you. All right. So you can also be more in control of your branding and who sees your content or who sees your posts, that type of thing. So you have a lot more control as opposed to some of the bigger, larger platforms. All right. And then you also, the big reason why you want to consider doing this is that it could be way more profitable. All right. So you may not have to pay the fees of the other platforms, but that doesn't mean there's no other costs involved. All right. You still will have to pay a certain amount of fees depending on how you do this. But again, the potential to make more money is definitely there. All right. So let's start with the pros. That's really what I want to focus on, because when I was considering doing this for my own, jewelry business and my own reselling, my own reselling career, these are the things that I thought about. And these are the things that make this option very, very attractive to me. All right. So pro number one is less competition. We've already kind of touched on this. Non-reselling platforms often have fewer jewelry sellers, allowing your products to stand out a lot more. All right. Now, I know there's jewelry resellers on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, which is probably where a lot of us will start out with this. But again, when you compare those jewelry resellers to the resellers that are on eBay or the resellers that are on Poshmark, it's pretty much night and day. All right. And once people get to know you, and once people get to know the type and the quality of jewelry that you have, people will go out of their way to seek you out and to connect with you and to shop with you. All right. So that's the first pro. Pro number two is niche audiences. These platforms can help you target specific audiences, all right, like a specific type of jewelry lover, especially on Instagram. I know one lady who does Instagram lives to sell her jewelry, and she pretty much only focuses on higher end vintage jewelry pieces. And she sells these pieces for hundreds of dollars on an Instagram live. All right, so you can really target specific buyers, or you can really create a niche community or a niche or a niche, you know, segment buyer group for your jewelry, which I think is really exciting. All right, pro number three is brand building opportunities. You have more creative control over how your brand is presented, helping you establish a unique identity. All right. So you guys know I'm really into branding. I'm really into social media. I'm really into marketing and all of that type of thing. And so if that is important to you as well, selling your jewelry on a non-reselling platform will only enhance that or take it to the next level, because you really can establish yourself as someone unique, carrying unique products or unique jewelry in this case. And so people will begin to recognize that the more you market yourself. All right. So that's really good. Pro number four is direct engagement with buyers. Now, when we sell on platforms like eBay and Poshmark, yes, you can message the buyers, especially if they have questions or customer service things and stuff like that. But you really cannot uh, connect with that buyer to build a relationship outside of that platform. All right. So we can't take customers away from eBay or Poshmark. We can't say, hey, come check out my website or come check out my show on Instagram or things like that. And so when you sell on these non-reselling platforms, you actually can establish a true relationship with these buyers in a way that you cannot do on these other big platforms, right? As a matter of fact, you will be penalized if you try to do so. All right. So having direct access to your buyers and allowing your buyers to have a little bit of direct access to you, especially when they're looking for something or they're ready to spend or they're ready to shop, whatever, that's definitely an advantage that you want to consider. All right. Next step, we have increased profit margins. I talked about that. So you are going to be able to keep more of the money as it relates to, whatever it is, how you're selling your jewelry. Now you will, excuse me, you will still have fees. You'll have fees, especially if you're using payment processors like PayPal or Stripe or something like that. You will have fees, but you won't have as much or as many fees as you would if you're on the non or on the reselling platforms. All right. But there's definitely a trade off. All right. You're probably going to have, or not probably, you will have more work to do as it relates to selling your jewelry on a non reselling platform. But for a lot of people who are doing this and making really good money, the trade off is worth it. All right. So you're going to have to think about that and see if that's going to work for you and your business. All right. But for me, I'm willing to do a little bit extra work in order to keep more of the money that is coming towards me or towards my business. All right. So by avoiding reselling platform fees, you can potentially increase your profits. We talked about that. All right, pro number 6 is flexibility in sales approach. All right, so you're not limited how you showcase your jewelry, how you sell your jewelry, the dollar amounts, the format in which you run your show or your business, whatever the case may be. You can test different strategies. You can use things like storytelling or influencer collaborations, and you can see what your audience resonates with. All right. So you have a lot of room for experimentation and to have fun. And like I said, to be creative. So this is something that really works with me and my personality and my style and way of working. So I'm really excited about this, just the flexibility and the opportunity to be more creative. All right, pro number 7 is expanded marketing opportunities. All right, content on non selling or non reselling platforms can serve dual purposes, driving sales and increasing brand awareness. And also, depending on how you're going to market your business, some of your content could also be monetized. So that's creating another layer of money for you as well, especially if you post content on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, Facebook, even. So you have more monetization options doing this as opposed to if you're selling on eBay, where the only way you're going to make money on eBay is if someone buys your item. That's it. But if you're creating content or creating jewelry shows or whatever on YouTube, well, that YouTube video can also be monetized, and you can also make money when people buy your stuff. All right. And then if you have other digital products or other products you sell, that YouTube video can also be a marketing strategy to promote other products that you may have for sale as well. And again, this is probably another reason why I'm so drawn to this, because of the multi-layered approach as it relates to monetization. All right. And my last pro as it relates to selling jewelry on non reselling platforms, excuse me, is the opportunities for viral exposure. Now, this is something that's not going to happen for everyone, but the potential and the possibility is there. All right. A single trending TikTok or Instagram post can lead to significant traffic and sales. I've seen it happen. I've had a few of my posts go viral on TikTok and on Instagram. Now, they weren't jewelry posts, but imagine if they were. And imagine if it was something where, I was selling or I was promoting something I was selling. It would have driven a lot of traffic to either my website, those listings, my posts, whatever the case may be. All right. So that's just something kind of fun. I don't want you to rely on that or to expect that necessarily. But it is a possibility, which again, I think makes this a lot more exciting. All right, so those are some of the pros as to why you want to consider selling your jewelry on non reselling platforms. But now we have to get into the cons. All right, because remember, there's always going to be a trade off. And this is something that we have to keep in mind and something that we have to be aware of. All right, so con number one is lack of built in buyer traffic. Now, this is the thing I've heard time and time again when people have considered leaving platforms like eBay and maybe selling on their own website or something like that. eBay pretty much brings the buyers to us, and even more so if we pay for promoted listings. But if you are going to sell on a platform that is not eBay or Poshmark or whatever, you're going to be responsible for getting the eyes on your jewelry and getting the traffic and getting your customers through the door, so to speak. All right. So non selling platforms don't have a ready made audience looking to buy. You are going to have to be responsible for that and do whatever needs to be done in order to get people, like I said, get them to notice what you have for sale. Now, this doesn't have to be something that's, scary and overwhelming, although it can be. But I think for me, that's part of the fun of it. All right. And then you will learn what works and what doesn't work as it relates to your business. All right. Con number two is higher marketing efforts required. All right. You're going to have to invest more time and resources into marketing, including creating engaging content. And in some cases, you may want to run paid ads. All right. Think about that if this is something you want to do. Now, this is why I think doing this maybe as part of your business when you're first getting started is a good idea, because you don't want to jump in, 100%, and you're waiting or trying to get customers and you're trying to learn how to market. But if you do this on the side, in addition to what you're already doing as it relates to your reselling business, you can really make this work and you can learn as you grow. All right. All right. So, con number three is the checkout process. So, you're going to be responsible for the entire checkout process. Now, the way I have done this and the way I see other people doing this is to basically invoice through PayPal. That is the simplest way. You do have to pay PayPal fees when you invoice someone, but this has been the simplest way and the most protected way that I have seen resellers do this when they're not using platforms such as eBay, Poshmark, and so forth. All right. So basically, as a seller, what you would do is you would invoice the buyer, and the buyer pays the invoice, and then you would ship out the items that they purchased. All right. So, a lot of buyers that I know and that I have worked with, they trust and know PayPal. And like I said, that gives protection to both the seller and the buyer. And that is definitely what you want, because especially if nobody knows you, they want to feel that you're not going to scam them. All right. And they want to feel like, okay, if for some reason this transaction goes haywire, um, PayPal is there to protect the buyer if for some reason they need to get the money back, or it protects the seller too if a buyer tries to scam you and say, "Oh, I never got this," or "This isn't what I ordered," and so forth. All right, so but that is something that you're going to have to be aware of. Without integrated sales features, you may need to direct buyers to external payment methods or websites. All right, so again, think about that. I've only used PayPal as it relates to this, and I've luckily have not had an issue. And I feel totally comfortable using PayPal, and my buyers haven't complained about using PayPal either. Now, I have seen other resellers use Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, but again, you don't have some of the protections in place that you do with PayPal. So that's going to be totally your call. All right, which takes me to con number 4, which is limited buyer trust. Again, if people don't know you, they may not feel comfortable shopping with you outside of a platform like eBay because, eBay helps to protect both buyer and seller. And so, again, if nobody knows you, that could be a little bit of a hurdle. But again, that's why if you kind of do this part time or slowly integrate this into what you're already doing, then you'll have time to build that relationship and build that trust with your potential buyers. All right, con number 5 is there is a learning curve to doing this. Remember, because now you're mastering all parts of the process as it relates to reselling your jewelry. And so it may take you a little while to learn how this works, how things flow. You're going to have to establish a system as it relates to listing or posting your jewelry, showing your jewelry if you're going to do lives or live streams, and then processing, the jewelry and shipping the jewelry. You're going to have to create systems for all of that. All right. And so it may take you a little while to figure all of that out. But I promise you, it's not that difficult. And I know a lot of resellers who are doing it. And you can figure this out. And especially if you take it slow, you'll be just fine. All right. So don't let that deter you. However, it will be something that you will have to learn as you go. All right, con number 6 is inconsistent sales, right? Now, this isn't only reselling on non-reselling platforms. You can have inconsistent sales on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, wherever. All right, so I don't want you to think that this is unique to this way of selling your jewelry. Inconsistent sales can happen no matter where you sell. Although, I think as it relates to this way or this format of selling, it could happen more or it could happen less, all right, depending on how frequently you post, what your system is as it relates to attracting new buyers or getting the word out there of what you have for sale. Okay, so that's just something to think about. But sales can fluctuate depending on your content's reach and engagement, all right, which can vary significantly on various social media platforms. All right, so again, that's just something to think about. Although, like I said, inconsistent sales can happen anywhere. All right, con number 7 is challenging scalability. All right, you may get to the point where your shows or your selling outside of the reselling platforms is so big that you may have to hire help. I do know some of the larger jewelry resellers who sell on YouTube. They do have someone to assist them. But these are sellers who may do a live show for an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours. And so they do have help. But then I do know one jewelry reseller. He will go live on YouTube for 4 or 5 hours and he does everything himself. All right. So it just depends. It just depends on you, depends on the volume that you're selling, the volume you want to sell or what that you want to grow to. All right. So you just have to think about that. All right. And finally, con number 8 is platform dependency. This could be a little scary, but again, I don't think this is unique to non reselling platforms because, depending on where you're selling, and we're talking probably it's going to be social media for a lot of us, algorithms and policies can change suddenly, which could affect how you sell on a social media platform. And that could affect your reach, that could affect your sales opportunities, it could affect your systems, whatever systems you have in place in order to connect with your buyers. All right. So, again, that's why. We don't put all our eggs in one basket. All right. Although I know a lot of resellers that do. Like there's a lot of resellers who only sell on eBay and that's all they do. All right. But as it relates to selling on non reselling platforms, you always want to have, something going on in case the main platform that you usually sell on, if something happens, you can always pivot as necessary. All right. So selling jewelry on non reselling platforms offers exciting opportunities to grow your brand and reach niche audiences. However, success often requires significant effort in marketing, customer engagement, and overcoming platform limitations, which we talked about earlier. By understanding these pros and cons, you can decide if this approach aligns with your business goals. All right, so here's the thing, the potential for me is very attractive. And so I'm going to be doing this as we move into the new year, like I said, and I'm really excited about it. I think that this is going to be a huge opportunity. And like, I don't want to say I'm, really like tired of eBay, but I am ready to do something different. I want to move away from the whole eBay thing. I feel like it's very limiting in so many ways for me, that I'm really attracted and I'm really excited about these other options as it relates to reselling my jewelry, because I love to experiment and be creative and try new things. And eBay really doesn't give me any type of leeway or flexibility or creative space to do that. All right. eBay is very structured. But here's the thing, eBay is great. I've sold on eBay for many, many years. And, who knows? Maybe I will go back to making that my main squeeze. But for right now, I'm really interested in doing something different. And I'm really interested, like I said, in having more creative control and flexibility as it relates to how I run my business and how I sell my products. All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about the platforms that you can sell your jewelry on. So basically, this is a very short answer. You can sell your jewelry pretty much on any social media platform. The majority of the jewelry resellers that I see doing well do it through live streams or live shows, although you don't have to only do it that way. All right, I think people like the engagement and they like the real time connection of a live show. Like if you're watching a YouTube live or an Instagram live, or even on TikTok, if you have a TikTok shop, whatever the case may be, I think people really, really like that. Although you don't have to do it, in a live selling format. All right. Even though that's what I love and that's what I see a lot of people doing, you don't have to only do it that way. All right. You can do posts on Instagram. You can do posts on Facebook. You can do a video on YouTube showing what you're selling and then put a link in the video description with your email address. And people, because I've seen people do this too, where they put their email address and then buyers can email them and say, hey, I'm interested in item number 10, 14, and 22. And then if they're still available, the person will go ahead and mess or invoice the buyer and they will go ahead and buy those things, right? Now that's a lot of back and forth. However, if you're not selling a whole lot of stuff, it could work for you, especially if you have the time to do it and pay attention to the emails that are coming in. All right. So basically, any and all social media platforms, you can figure out how to sell your jewelry on those platforms. All right. So TikTok is going really well for a lot of people. So that's one to consider. For me, I think I'm going to do Facebook and probably YouTube, although I'm kind of nervous about YouTube. And I don't understand why. I may have a mental block about it, but those are the platforms I'm going to be focusing on, Facebook and YouTube. All right. So you can also sell in Facebook groups and on Facebook pages. I have seen resellers do this as well. All right. I know one reseller, she doesn't sell jewelry, but she sells on a Facebook page and then she posts a picture of the item and then she puts a starting bid in the post in the description and then people bid on the post. If she says $10, someone will put $10, someone will put 11, 12 and so forth. And then when she closes that particular post, I think she lets it run for 24 hours or something like that. She closes it, she turns off comments, and then she will invoice whoever typed in the comments the highest bid. All right, so you can do it that way too. And then she will send them an invoice and she will either ship it out or the person will come pick it up depending on where they live or however you decide to do that. So that's a way you can do that too. All right. Now, the other thing is if you are going to sell on some of these platforms, one of the things that you want to do, or maybe what you may want to consider, is to have buyers pre-register before they are allowed to bid or purchase your items. That way you have their name, their PayPal email, their shipping address, and all of that. All right. And you can create a pre-registration form using Google Forms or Jot Forms, JOT Forms. And both of those options are free. And those are the ones that I see a lot of people do. And that's probably what I will do as it relates to, selling on some of these social media platforms, is I will require buyers to pre-register. And this also cuts down a lot on people, bidding on stuff and then never paying for it. Right. So if you have their information, you'll be able to invoice them right away. And then you always create a payment window in which payment has to be made. I've seen people do 48 hours and 72 hours. So once you send the invoice, buyers have to pay within 48 hours. And if they don't, then the item gets put back up for sale. All right. So you'll have to figure all of that out and figure out what will work for you. Now, the other thing about selling on social media is it gives you more, I guess, freedom to share information about the piece, right? Like you can do story time. I've seen people do that and talk about, oh, I found this piece at a yard sale from a woman who, got it from her grandmother, whatever. People love that kind of stuff, right? So that is something you could do too to help promote your items for sale and also to create the connection and engagement with your buyers and potential buyers. All right. So social media platforms, that is probably the main option that a lot of us are going to use as it relates to selling our jewelry on non-reselling platforms. All right. The other option, or the next option I have in my notes, is your own website. All right. So I've seen buyers do this. As a matter of fact, that I had Brandon on the podcast and he set up a vintage jewelry website where he is selling his stuff. Now, he sells the majority of his items on Whatnot, but he also has a separate independent website where he sells a lot of his vintage jewelry. And I think he sells like bulk lots on there as well. And I think he's doing fairly well with it. But again, you're in charge of everything as it relates to running your own website because you have to really draw traffic to your website. And so if that is something you're considering, it could work. But remember, you will need to get eyes and traffic to your website. And you can do that with free methods and you can do that with paid methods. Now, the other thing I've seen a lot of people doing with their own website as it relates to reselling jewelry is using Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is something that a lot of resellers don't really talk about, but from what I've learned, it's a great way to get traffic and get eyes on your products, or to get traffic to your website. So if you do have your own website, consider using Pinterest as one of the methods to drive traffic to your website. All right, because Pinterest is huge. Driving traffic to a jewelry focused blog or store. I mean, like I would definitely use Pinterest. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to be incorporating Pinterest more in my own marketing strategies in the new year. All right. You can also build a loyal community on a business page, right? If you are using, like, I'm not quite sure. I think you can. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say because I was thinking you could use Pinterest to drive traffic to your Facebook group, but I don't think that's allowed. So I don't want to say either way. But you know what I mean? If it's your own website, you can definitely link to your own website. All right. Let's see. All right, so we talked about personal websites and or blogs as a way to sell your jewelry on a non-reselling platform. All right, a lot of people use Shopify. You can also use a website like Squarespace or WordPress if you want to set up your own website or blog. You can definitely do that. But remember, you have to drive traffic to your website or blog. All right. And that may or may not be something you want to do. Okay. So finally, here's something that I think is going to be a lot of fun too, which are offline options as it relates to selling your jewelry, right? So we talked about selling your jewelry online on non-reselling platforms, primarily social media and or your own website or blog, but you can also sell your jewelry offline, in person, right? You can do um, jewelry parties, you can do jewelry show and tells, you can do pop up shops, which I've talked about on the podcast before. You can also do a virtual jewelry party. I mean, that's still online, but you can do that on platforms like Zoom, um, wherever, right? I'm kind of thinking about that idea. Like, how can I host a virtual jewelry party and how would it work? All right. But that's another idea, right? You can maybe partner with a local boutique, or you can do what I did and sell in an antique mall. All right. Now, you probably won't get, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that because you may sell a lot of pieces, right? I didn't sell at the volume I wanted to or at the volume that I was selling online when I did some of these in person options. But maybe that was just me. Your mileage may vary. You may have a different experience than what I had. But it's something to consider. And of course, maybe you don't want to do this all the time, but you can do this seasonally. You can do this maybe for a special occasion. I've talked about, sometimes participating in like those little craft fairs and craft shows. We have them here where you can rent a table or a booth or a space and you can set up your jewelry that way. And there's people who make thousands of dollars doing that. We have a vintage market that happens twice a year here in Las Vegas. And I have a friend who she sells jewelry, but she sells other stuff too. And she'll make $4, $5, $6,000 just in that weekend selling her stuff. Right. So again, it just kind of depends on how you're going to do this and what's going to work for you. All right. But that is a whole different type of format or plan or system in order to do that. But it's an option for you. And like I said, you don't have to do it all the time. You can just do it maybe once or twice a year or however often it makes sense for you. All right. So, what else did I have? Oh, collaborating with local boutiques. I thought about doing this, although I never, I never did. But you can see if there's a little shop or a little place where you can set up your jewelry. As a matter of fact, I remember I went to here in Las Vegas, we had a cute little vegan cafe, and there was a girl in there who sold her handmade jewelry in there. Like, I guess, I don't know if she had to pay for it or if it was just something, they were doing. Maybe they were friends, who knows? But it was a little vegan cafe, and then she had a little table set up in the cafe with all of her handmade jewelry displayed, and she was selling it there. So, you could partner with local businesses where it would make sense for you to display and set up your jewelry there. And it would be a benefit for both you and for the little local business, depending on whatever it is, right? And I also know some people do this at their 9 to 5. There's a lady I know, she works in a regular office job, but I guess she got permission with her boss to set up a little table during her lunch break to sell her jewelry. And she did really well with that. I don't know how often she did it or if it was just a one time thing, but she said that she got permission from her boss to do that. And she sold a lot of jewelry at her workplace, right? So there's all kinds of ways you can make this work. Again, I don't know if this would be something you would do full time, but it could work once in a while. All right, so that is something to think about, and it would take some planning as well. So, again, if it makes sense for you, it could be an option to explore. All right, so let me see and make sure that I didn't miss anything. All right. So, as it relates to selling on non reselling platforms, you want to understand that it really is about marketing and being seen and really communicating what you have to the people who are looking for what you have. All right. It's also about you having the courage to show up consistently in whatever way that is that you decide, whether it's on social media or if it's in person, at an antique mall, whatever. It's really about you taking charge of your business and really making the decision to connect with your buyers in whatever way you can and however you can. All right. So remember, you are going to be in control of every aspect of this, but I think it brings a lot of advantages and potential and at the end of the day, profits that make it all worth it. All right. There is a learning curve. You are going to have to figure out how this is going to work for you. But I promise you, this is something that you can do. And if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and the energy, you will be rewarded. All right. And a lot of us are doing this just because the potential is so great, you know. And I'm not bad mouthing eBay or any other platform, but remember, that's not the only way to resell. It's probably the most well known and the most popular, but it's not the only way to make money out there as a reseller. And that's what this entire episode is about, to at least expand your awareness and really get your creative mind thinking and how you can make this work for you. All right, so that is all I have for this episode. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Have you thought about selling your jewelry on a non reselling platform or in a way that's totally different than what everybody else is doing? Or did you get maybe some ideas from this episode of things that might work for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback on this. All right. So, and if you'd like to discuss it more, remember, we do have a brand new Facebook group, like I said at the beginning of the show. And if you'd like to join, the link will be in the description of this video, or it will be in the show notes if you're listening to the audio version. All right, friends, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I'll check in with you again really soon.